the game changer. So much chaos, waste, confusion, and mismanagement. 54 nation-states and 10 dependent territories without much to show. A mix of rich resources, wonderful climate, great wealth potential, and lush vegetation, and abundant human capital, yet running around in circles, decade after decade, century after century. We've done the math, located the devil's arithmetic, filled the blanks, and concatenated the variables. And now is the time to introduce the Game Changer. Game Changer. Game Changer. The strategic introduction that changes everything in a significant way.
Change, we have said, is the most predictable event in human history. And we have pointed out that the future is a dynamic that is based largely on the execution of the human will in one direction or the other. A new dawn is breaking all over the whole globe, and Africa this time around will not be asleep. We need to be contributors, and to do that, we have said 54 nation states of Africa, 10 dependent territories, every single one has a purpose and has a contribution to make towards the global future. However, we need to lay down one or two things and explain that Africa needs to put on its thinking cap, and we need to bring into focus the architecture of thought. Number one, when we look at the architecture of thought, we are saying that a lie will remain a lie after 1,000 years have passed. A truth will remain a truth after the passage of 1,000 years. Time does not affect the veracity of truth, and time will not correct a lie into truth. Also, we need to look at the fact that a faulty foundation never autocorrects itself. A faulty foundation after 1,000 years will remain a faulty foundation. You cannot successfully execute a building project on a faulty foundation. Neither time, prayers, nor emotions, none of these things will heal a faulty foundation, and they will not autocorrect a lie into truth. These are the things that African nations will need to look at as we begin to make our contributions towards the global future. We have said that Nigeria was born on the 1st of October in 1960, was birthed as a nation with a puzzle to crack, with a riddle to solve, a key to find, a key that will help to unlock the African continent. We said Ghana was born in 1957 as a nation with leadership skills to lead Black Africa. South Africa, in turn, has a problem to solve: how Black Africa will relate with the rest of the nations of the world. Now, talking about the key that Nigeria has to resolve, we are applying the architecture of thought. And I want you to take note of one thing right now. If we learn from the architecture of thought that is in divine engineering, we will observe that in nature, naturally, we will see patterns, we will see predictabilities, we will see consistencies. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. We will see interactivities, we will see interdependencies, intricate designs, we'll see rhythms. Now, what are we saying? When you look into the architecture of thought that was put in divine engineering, you detect the elements of programming. For instance, human beings all over take in air, utilize oxygen, and expel carbon dioxide as a waste. All vegetation and trees use air, utilize the carbon dioxide, and expel the oxygen. And you see there's an interdependency that is engineered. It's a product of the architecture of thought. There's thinking behind it. And wherever you see these interactivities, you see these intricacies of design. I mean, there's nothing like looking at the human eye, for instance, when you see the cornea, the pupil, the iris, the eyebrows, the optic nerve, and you look at the amount of engineering, the architecture of thought that is in it. It helps us to appreciate one thing, that the wisdom of programming is divine. Now, I need to state a few things quickly for us to make progress on this quest. One, we need to remember that creation itself is a program. When you look at the rising of the sun to the setting of the same, you look at the ocean waves, you look at the birds as they migrate and all that, you'd have to accept the fact that there is a program in creation. The force of gravity is a part of that program. All the consistencies you see were thought of before they came into being. And they were thought of because there is a programmer somewhere behind the scene. Now, of all the programs in creation, it is obvious that man himself is a program. All men drink water. All men eat food. We all have the same structure of the digestive system. The way we all breathe is the same. When you look at the structure of man, every man has a skeletal spine structure without which none of us will be able to stand erect. Now, it's interesting because this means that man is a program. But the more interesting thing really is the fact that man is not only a program, but man is permitted to be a programmer within certain ambits. The same intelligence that created the world, the same architecture of thought that created the world, has given something to man that separates man from the rest of all living beings. It has given us the power to be programmers within a certain ambit. We definitely cannot ask the sun to rise in the north and set in the south, but within certain ambits, we are able to reprogram using the architecture of thought. And this leads us to the fact that if you look through human history, you'll find out that on one side we have had positive programming, and on the other side we have what we call negative programming. Now, I'd like to chip this in quickly that all major religions in the world agree that God is a creator. And as a matter of fact, when you look in the scriptures in the book of Genesis, the Bible says in chapter 1, verse 26 that God said, "Let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the heavens, the livestock of the field, and over all the earth and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." Now, this is very interesting because I want to bring in the witness of a man called Cicero. Cicero was an ancient philosopher. He was a Roman consul in the heydays of Rome. He was a contemporary to Julius Caesar. Born the year 106, he died in 43 BC, before Christ. However, there's something that Cicero was able to decode. Cicero looked at nature. He studied the cosmos. He looked at the order in the universe. He looked at everything around him, and Cicero concluded that the creator had to be a very intelligent being. Cicero also concluded that the creator created man to be intelligent in some measure like himself, because man alone is the one that's able to appreciate the rhythm, the beauty, and all the elements of design that God has put into creation. Now, it's amazing that when you look into the good book, you'll find a witness for these things. You know, for ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and the sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power, and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing God. I'll continue again and look at another quote that says, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. The days are talking. Night after night is imparting knowledge." They may not have an audible speech, but they use no words. No sound is heard from them, yet their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the earth. What we are saying here is this: if you apply the architecture of thought, it is obvious that there is a divine being behind the creation of the world, the intricacies of the design, the interdependencies, the dependabilities. It is obvious. And it is also obvious that man is in a privileged position to be able to appreciate a whole lot of these things. It's called the architecture of thought. We will push the envelope further and apply the architecture of thought to seeing how to resolve the challenge for which Nigeria was created, the key that will unlock the whole of the African continent.